Today, we're diving headfirst into the controversial waters of the small screen adaptation of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now, I don't know about you, but when I heard about this series, I was buzzing with excitement. I mean, who wouldn't be? A reboot of the electrifying spy romance that had Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt sizzling on screen. Count me in. But alas, my friends, not all that glitters is gold, and this series, well, let's just say it didn't quite live up to the hype. So, grab your popcorn. Now, not a big popcorn because this video is not that long. Settle in because we're about to dissect why Amazon's Mr. and Mrs. Smith series missed the mark. Yo, Andrew here. Welcome to 2 Cents. I watch stuff and sometimes I recommend stuff. Now, the important thing to note about this limited series on Amazon Prime is it is nothing like the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie version. The only similarities they have is the name Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And of course, they're both assassins, but that's pretty much it. The Brad Pitt and Angelina version is about two assassins who fall in love not knowing each other was an assassin, and then they end up getting married and eventually find out violently.
Come on, sweetheart. Come to daddy.
Who's your daddy now?
Whereas this Amazon series follows the plotline of the 1996 Mr. and Mrs. Smith TV series, where two previously unknown assassins in their own right are each promoted to a Mr. and Mrs. Smith role to perform covert operations for a security organization known as The Company. But there is just something that irks me a little about this Amazon series, even though I have a lot of positives to say about this mini-series, but there's just that right there. Little irk. And with that said, I'm going to give you the plot of this limited series, followed by pros and cons, then later my ratings. The plot. Two strangers land jobs with a spy agency that offers them a life of espionage, wealth, and travel. But there is a catch. The catch is new identities in an arranged marriage. Now, let's delve into the pros and cons, starting with cons. Con number 1. Donald Glover's character absolutely insists on dressing like a rich 80s to 90s black man in a series that is set in 2024. It sort of becomes a caricature of itself because his outfit is so jarring. It just doesn't make sense. His outfit calls attention to itself, which pretty much goes against the whole spy thing. It's not tactical. He rarely ever wears tactical gear. He wears expensive boat shoes. Loafers. He wears loafers for running. Get the out of here. Con number 2. Donald Glover and his brother Stephen Glover wrote some portions of the series, and that's not a bad thing. But this series really is not a Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie because we definitely know they are piggybacking off the popularity of Brad and Angelina Jolie's version whilst going loosely with the unsuccessful 1996 version. And I say the 1996 version was unsuccessful because it had 1 season and 13 episodes, of which 4 of those episodes from the 13 didn't even air. Con number 3. Now listen, if you see a black man and an Asian woman running away from a crime scene in a country where white people are the majority, you will instantaneously take an unconscious note, not because you're racist, but because you are human and it's just kind of like, what's up with that? And that, you will look at them in a suspicious way, which, I mean, is not a good combo for any spy mission. It's just a bad combo. Because let's say the cops stop, a bystander and go, did you see anything? You would definitely remember and go, I saw a black guy dressed like it was the 80s and 90s in 2024 and an Asian chick right next to him. And they ran away from that explosion that was over there. And I was thinking to myself, what is going on? I mean, they didn't walk on the sidewalk. They just sort of ran in the middle of the road. What the f? Con number 4. This series is predominantly an emotional relationship drama. and not an action romantic comedy as you thought it was. Con number 5. The Mrs. Smith character is really annoying. Like, very, very unlikable. I almost would say she has unredeemable qualities, but like, she's just unlikable. That's all I have to say about it. Con number 6. Now, I think this is a vanity project for Donald Glover because he is fantastic at practically everything he does. He is a singer-songwriter, rapper, actor, director, producer, but him playing a character that has to perform masculine action star stuff, it's a little unbelievable, but you know, I will continue to watch on if they have a season 2 for this. I'm already invested. Con number 7. Now, in the credits, Paul Dano was cast as the sexy neighbor. Paul Dano. What? What? Now, let's do the pros because this series does a few things quite right. Pro number 1. This show is not woke as I was worried due to the diversity casting it was going to be a lot of racial and feminist pandering. So that not being the case makes it quite easy to watch, at least in my opinion. Pro number 2. It's an easy, calming watch. Really chill vibes. You will appreciate that. Pro number 3. It feels like a more sophisticated version of the TV series Atlanta, which also stars Donald Glover. And it makes sense because most of the people who are running that show also are running this show. Pro number 4. Donald Glover and his brother Stephen Glover were executive producers and sometimes writers on this series, and that's always cool to see, you know, a successful family collaboration. I quite really appreciated that. Pro number 5. Now, this one's a bit of a fun fact. Donald Glover's real mom plays his mom in this series, which is a pretty cool thing to do. It's a pretty cool way to immortalize your mother. Pro number 6. The cinematography and production value feels very high-end, and that really helps you buy into the concept of the series. It's supposed to be like a high-concept thing, you know, espionage, fancy cars, nice clothing, beautiful houses, great architecture. They nailed it. Pro number 7. It does have comedic bits that land very well, which is pretty damn cool. And also I appreciate the fact that the entire series is not a comedy per se, so it's easy to watch and take seriously. I'm gonna go ahead and rate this Amazon Limited series 5 out of 10 because I see what they were trying to do. I could see it, but they didn't pull it off as well as I hoped they would. And that kind of sucks. If you are going into this series, it's important that you know it's going to be a slow burn and very dialogue driven and also emotional and doesn't have a lot of action going on, but it's still quite entertaining and a very enjoyable, but also nothing like the Brad and Angie version, which I actually recommend you go and see instead. If you haven't seen it, you should go and see it. It's actually a lot of fun. And that is my 2 cents. If you like what I'm doing here, please like and consider subscribing. I appreciate you. Thank you. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.